Welcome to In or Out, the European Ultimate Federation's show about the European Ultimate Club Series. I'm Ravi Vasudevan here, and we've already discussed who's in and who's out, and it's time for EUCF. And for that today, we're going to reveal all the pools. For those who don't know, we have a pool draw format where the top 4 seeds locked in, and then there are pots of 5 to 8. 9 to 12, and 13 to 16. Those get shuffled around. So now we're going to find out who's going to face who in which pool. But I've got some lovely guests to react to the pools in each division. I also personally have not seen the pools in any division. We're going to start with the women's division with Lorcan Murray. Then we're going to have Hannah Pendlebury on to discuss the mixed division. And finally, John Doherty, John Dock to come in to close things out with the open division. Before we get into that, just want to talk a little bit about E2CF. Sadly, we did not get enough interest to host a mixed or women's division. The open division will be going on. We're currently at 7 teams. We just had one drop out, so we're trying to find an 8th team shortly. So if you're on that list, check your emails. You might be getting an invite shortly. It was an interesting experiment with the E2CF this year. Aren't really sure if we're going to do it again next year. Looking like maybe not. We saw that the women's and mixed divisions there's not enough teams, so there's not enough interest to fill up 8 more teams into an end of season event. For the open division, there are enough teams, but also that we found out that the teams that are really at that top level of the cutoff, like the 17s and stuff like that, didn't really want to join. So we're going to gauge interests. We're also going to send out some feedback forms and see what to do for next year. But for this year, we will have an open division E2CF and no mixed and a women's, sadly. Okay. One more thing. We're doing the pool draw this year, and it's probably going to be the last time we do this because we decided with the competition committee, we all agreed at our retreat recently that for next year, we're going to do a pool draft. This has been like a dream for media people for a while, and we decided that since we have this to really lock in some incentives for those top 4 seeds, why not get them to pick their own pools? And so it's going to go that we're going to get a representative from the teams from teams 1, 2, 3, 4 in each division to join a show and live pick who they want their 4 seed, 3 seed, and 2 seed to be in their pools from the different pots. So we'll discuss that a lot more next year, but that's going to be really fun, I think. We did a simulation of it with the competition committee, and it made for some interesting picks. And I think it'll be a lot of drama and a lot of added excitement to the EUCF next year. But that's it. Let's dive into what people are here to see, and that's the pools for the EUCF 2025. First, I'll bring on my first guest, Lorcan Murray. Lorcan back from last week's show, also going to join us at EUCF to commentate. Lorcan, how you doing this fine evening?
First and worst, baby. I'm feeling like a silly sausage, and I'm ready to have some fun. I am very excited for this reveal. Yeah, we weren't told that, or I didn't know that while I was preparing. So yeah, I can't wait to get into it.
All right, I think let's just start things off with the slideshow then, and we will get into this pool reveal. I think we're going to start off looking at the women's division. Whoop, let's get that into a full screen presentation. There we go. Nemo helping us up in the background, doing some last minute slides for us. We'll start with just the top 4. This shouldn't be a mystery to anybody, but yeah, we're going to start with BFD Shout, Pool A. Hrut Women's in Pool B. Jinx Midnight in Pool C. And Iceni in Pool D. So this is the slate at looking at the next slide for the overall view of what we got going on. This is the slate of teams in seeding Group 1. You saw this last week already, Lorcan. Any thoughts on these top 4 seeds before we look into maybe what are some teams, some of these pool winners or pool top holders, I don't know what you want to call them. What would they want to avoid in this draw if you were them?
Oh, a few different ones. I suppose it depends on the team. Out of the 4 main teams, or out of the 4 teams in the next seed, the one I'd want to avoid the most, probably Moon Cup.
And if you think Moon Cup's, let's say you think Moon Cup's the strongest of that seeding group, the interesting question, and we'll get into this in other divisions as well, do you think you'd want to avoid them in Pool A, or would you want to get them in your pool so that, okay, maybe things don't go well against them, but then you'll get them you might at least miss them in a quarter. Like what would be your strat if you were picking pools in that sense?
I get what you mean there. I would rather, if you're in the top pool, you just need to beat everybody. I think that needs to be your mindset going in. Like that's why you're in the top pool. Probably already is your mindset. The inverse of that, if I was Moon Cup, I'd be like, there's a couple of teams I'd rather face you in the pool stages and then try and force like a big matchup on the other side of the semis.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, do you have like, let's say you just said that. If you're Moon Cup, what pool do you want to be in here?
Out of those, probably Iceni.
Yeah, I think that would slot them against. If they lose that game to Iceni, they would slot, I believe, against. We'll just put the bracket up later. I believe that puts them against Jinx Midnight in the quarter, if that would be the way things go. But anyways, let's just get things going. Let's start off with seeding Group 4. We'll work our way up through the pools.
We'll stop speculating on things that are about to be fact.
Yeah. Why don't we do that? Pool D in seed 4 is Fabulous Burn. Drawn into Pool D there. And then Pool C, we have Heidi's Synergy. In Pool B, we got Spice. And then that leaves in Pool A, Ketchup Graz. So I think we're going to get a overview picture now of how the pools look so far. I think things will get spicier when we get to the top seeding group, but anything you see here that tickles your fancy?
I don't want to be, not particularly. Okay. There is a demarcation point, I think, between the top and then the middle and the bottom in the women's division. What I'm curious about is where you put that demarcation mark yourself. But yeah, I don't think any of these teams are really going to challenge any of the top ranked ones.
Yeah, we do see a German matchup, Jinx versus Heidi's in Pool C. So it's always interesting because that sometimes familiarity can breed random upsets that you're not really expecting. But I think Jinx Midnight probably have that one locked up. We'll see. Let's move on to seeding Group 3 then. So in Pool A, so I think we're snaking backwards. Now we got Smog. Pool B, we have 3SB. Pool C, we have Bristol. Okay. And then Pool D, we've got the Sharks, Barcelona, the 9th-ranked teams. They're over in Pool D. So, anything now shaping up that's interesting matchup to see in here?
We'll see what the weather's like, right? But the Sharks, they play that unique style. I do think, again, just a little bit below. Not really. But if we're going to try and entertain some of this thing, I think the Sharks may be sneaking in there against Iceni. I think Heidi's definitely have a shout against Bristol. Ketchup will fancy themselves against Smog. Well, I suppose across the board as well. Spice a very hard team to keep down. But if you're talking about people who are actually going to cause upsets that reverberate through to the quarterfinals, I'd say Sharks out of those. I would have maybe just homegrown leaned a bit Bristol, but they didn't have the best weekend last weekend, and Jinx have got a lot of talent. So,
I mean, they qualified for Worlds. They just the last game they didn't quite pull it together. But that's the kind of teams they're going to be facing here, right? That's
we were talking about Iceni being the most vulnerable of the top 4 seed teams. Like,
what was it, 15-6 or something like?
Something like that. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't watch the end.
What about 3SB Hrut? Is this something? I mean, I think in previous years, I know 3SB has given Hrut sometimes challenges at tournaments like Windmill before. And, in a random, games like always 3SB, if their shots are firing and the shots are landing, let's say the shots are always firing. If the shots are landing, can be quite a challenge. I think stylistically, that's not the worst matchup for them.
No, and stylistically, it's banter. But at the end of the day, it's like we're going to get into a gunslinging match against a team who are notably better at shooting than us. You're going to probably lose. But yeah, I'm sure it'll be a really, really fun match. But the 3SB actually started quite impressively, also qualified for Worlds. VSB is very good, but they don't have the elite stars at the top of their squad. Like there's an array of cannons on Hrut. And then 3SB, there's a couple of good throwers and a lot of good receivers.
All right. Let's get to the seeding group that's the most interesting here. Fill out the division. Oh, also interesting because we'll get the whole thing sorted out. So we're starting in Pool D, going right to left now. We've got Tequila Boom Boom, Yaka in Pool C, East Block in Pool B, which means Moon Cup got themselves in Pool A. And this is, again, it happened last year in the mixed division that the 1 and 5 ended up in pool play against each other. Last time it was Reading against Deep Space. Now we have Shout against Moon Cup. Yeah, so here we go. This is the slate of teams. Now, what do you see?
All right, well, it's hard to just talk about it all in general. Let's start in Pool A. I think Moon Cup could upset Shout. Does that sound crazy to you?
Not crazy. No, I mean, seeing how have we seen Moon Cup with all the French World Games teams players on their squad yet this season?
Have not. We haven't seen them at either invite with Blanc or Forget. I think a lot of other players have really stepped up on that team, who I'm happy to get into. It's tough, like, because BFD Shout are so impressive, and something I just want to put in there. Chance to not qualify for Worlds but be the reigning European champions is very much on the cards for them, and it would be an upset. Pardon?
Just that's in the cards. just agreeing with you.
Stop being so harsh to the Italians. They didn't medal last year, and it was the first time in like 7 years in which they haven't done that. They've come out very intense with a lot of talent, and I think they've got might be favorites. But if you're going to look at the incredible talent Moon Cup have had, the work they've done over the last 2 seasons, the way they've come, I think, 6th and 5th, they've kind of, I think, got baptized at that higher level, so gotten used to the intensity. Obviously, everyone's going to be talking about even moving on, but plenty of huge talent has come into that team as well, such as Helen Thompson, the World Games players. Fiona Schluter is very, very impressive and was really good against Jinx in a close game. I think if they can get it all clicking, they've got so much variety, and a lot more talent people give them credit for. So that would be, I think, a very interesting match. Shout, we know, first off, incredible at the US Open, but we know their zones to an extent. You can go and look them up, and they definitely have done that because Moon Cup are doing their homework. And I think they've got the ability to play through those. And I think they've got the athletes, including. Actually, hold on. That's tough for me. Is Leduc the best defender, or do I think Dunn's? They both sides have got one of the top 3 defenders in Europe.
It's going to be a good game.
It's going to be a very good game. I think that one. I don't know, but there's probably the least likely upset I see there is Yaka Jinx. What do you think?
Well, let's go through pool by pool. So we talked about Shout Moon Cup. Anything else you want to go further down in Pool A, or should we just move on to Pool B? I mean, I think you agree.
Further down in Pool A, I definitely think catch up under normal circumstances. You expect them to be above Smog, but Smog have done a good job developing the women's side of their team, and catch up. I mean, they're here, so that's a big achievement. I don't know. They've looked a step behind at times this year, so I'd favor Smog over them. Even though if you look at those 2 names, your first thought would be like, yeah, catch up are going to win there.
But I think you see it as kind of two brackets here, right? The 1-2 and the 3-4. It's quite a big gap between the 2.
I kind of feel that in every pool, to be honest. Maybe Pool D. Anyway, like you say, we'll go into Pool B.
Yeah, let's go to Pool B, where I think 3SB might have something to say about that. If you think there's a big gap between East Block and 3SB, given that they qualified over East Block for Worlds. So let's see if we can put that to the test here.
They did it at the start of the season. I was there. I watched the game. I was honestly fairly surprised. But they're 2 very different East Block squads, right? And I was talking to Lou, the coach for East Block, just before this, and how they brought a lot of younger players, and they're really trying to spread the wealth at that tournament, which is a great thing to do early on in the season. Maybe not your Worlds qualification match. But, and again, another huge loss, few huge losses from the East Block team moving over to other sides. And I think they've still got they brought in some great additions. They've got all their best players coming to this tournament, like a couple of them who were not around earlier on at some of the invites. Alina Dolajalova, sorry, I'm going to try my best with these names. Alina Dolajalova, who is incredible at Windmill. East Block were incredible at Windmill in general, coming 3rd in the end, I think, including 2 Universe Point wins over Colombian sides, representing Europe. Love it. And I just think over the course of the season, East Block have gone from strength to strength, which is an idiom I hate repeating, but they're really upwards trending from that really heartbreaking start. 3SB kind of hit the high point of their season way too early, and I think have been trailing off in the other direction. I'm very sorry, Rachel. Please don't hurt me.
Okay, we'll go into Pool C. So sorry. You think East Block are going to take 3SB in this matchup? Do you think East Block have a shot against Crit?
Probably not. Probably not. I don't know. That game against Jinx was really, really impressive, right? What do you think? I mean, the final of the Elite Invite where they lost on Universe, but had that like big comeback, 3 point. They were like 3 points down, got it to Universe.
Yeah, I mean, I think like we know about Hrut. We know their stars and their play style and how they're going to come out swinging, and they're really have their
Vengeance
eyes
match?
set. They have their eyes set on Wook for next year. That's their big goal right now. They've been playing. They haven't always done it, but they've been trying to play pretty even lines so far this season to get themselves, get everybody prepared so that when things come down to it, they can play. I don't know what their approach is going to be at this tournament. If they're still going to be thinking, hey, this EUCF doesn't matter. What matters is Worlds next year. So let's use this EUCF to prepare for that. Or are they going to say, hey, let's practice winning and getting this gold? Are we going to tighten up lines to try to win games? Or are we going to give everyone experience? Like, they have the depth of talent that they can do either one and still be relatively successful. They still got second seed in Europe with that kind of mentality. I think they're a step up, but East Block's got the likes. You didn't mention Dominika Hadova, who was their stats leader at Summer Tour. Yeah. It's been a fantastic player for them also in the past. And I think they have a nice style, but of course one key that we have to mention, and I know East Block hates when we mention this repeatedly, but we've got the Christina Tlusta on Hrut, who probably will know everything about what East Block wants to do and make sure that they're fully prepped for it. But that might give East Block a bit more of an edge. They want to come out and beat their old leader, and But yeah, I see Hrut winning this one, but I think it's going to be that storyline is going to be interesting. The Tlusta versus her old team one.
Yes, and the other thing about Toulouse is you're talking about the Hrut style. She just opens up a whole other avenue of assault for them when they're already one of the most lethal teams, bringing her incredibly quick movement. I also want to give a shout out to Klara Shevakova and Marie Zaluska, who I think have been fantastic stepping up this season. Big part of like upward trajectory. A lot of great players. Don't want to run through them because I'm going to murder their names. But a couple of specific ones, because you did mention Hadova, Shevakova, and Zaluska have also, I think, really stepped up to fill that gap. And then some of the younger players have come forward into receiving roles. Like they lost Hrushikova and Vavrova, who are veterans of the bronze medal team back in 2023. I don't think they've gone to other teams. I might be wildly wrong on that, but they're not with East Block again. Those are another two big losses, both in terms of leadership and in terms of ability. I think they've really bounced back. Fancy them for a sucker punch, a vengeance-filled sucker punch. Why not?
All right, let's quickly move on to Yaka and Jinx is the matchup. Unless you think Bristol's also in that mix, I think you mentioned that you don't think they're quite there. This one, I mean, Yaka. I'll start off first. Yaka had an underwhelming EUCF last year. I know they only brought 14 players. They didn't go for it, and they suffered the consequences. The women's division was too good last year to think you're just going to waltz in and just because your name's Yaka, you're gonna be in the top 8. Didn't happen. They're coming with full force this year, but I still see them in the results I've seen so far this year. I still see them as kind of a notch below that top echelon. I think this will be a relatively easy win for Jinx compared to the other ones. Like I think the East Block game has more intrigue in it than what I might see from Jinx Yaka.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be inclined to agree. Yaka's season, they haven't had the highest standard of opposition to test themselves again, and when they found Tequila Boom Boom and Iceni, they lost to both of them. They've beaten Fab and Spice. No one else they really played made it to these qualifiers. Huge fan of Chloe Olivier. I thought standout World Games performance, heart and soul of that team at times, leading the charge. So you put her in the forefront of your team. Who the fuck knows who can stop you? Apart from, I guess, Canadians. But yeah, when you look around and you try to see how much room to go up do they have, I don't know. I don't really know. Also, I'm surprised by this. So I'd love a verification or a check with the community. Yaka only have 1 gold at European level?
I believe so, yeah. I know that they've gotten a lot of medals, but they didn't. I think they've only gotten 1 gold. Yeah,
in 2021. So if anybody,
they were kind of stuck in the. It was always they were, I think, getting good right as Iceni lost their dominance, but then they were kind of stuck in when Shout kept taking it over them, and I think they only managed to get over the hump one time. Yeah. So let's go to the last pool, Pool D, and then we'll quickly have a look at the bracket because we have gone a bit over the.
I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah, Lorcan, you love to talk. Iceni, Tequila, okay. Sharks. Fabulous. How's this one shaking out for you?
This one's actually crazy interesting, and it's unfortunate we don't have that much time. I really want to play a very, very quick game with you. Okay, it goes, because we've been talking about IC, the most vulnerable top seed. It goes gold, silver, silver, gold, bronze, gold, 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 silver, bronze. No, bronze, silver, silver, gold. Do you know what that is?
That was probably like Icini's
That's me
finishes
counting
in
from 6
2010s.
to 18. Yeah, 6 to 18, and they haven't medaled since. I also got a little wrong at the end, but my point is from 6 to 18 medals, haven't got it since.
Every
Did
year,
a
yeah.
big refresh of their team. A couple of people have been saying on the English side, they've gotten a lot of that strength back over the last couple of years. The squads look good, but the results haven't been there. Talking to Hannah, who will be joining us later on to talk about the mixed division, she was highlighting that this year it really feels like all those horses are pulling in the same direction. The results throughout the season, fairly good. Lost to Shout and lost to Grut. The Shout match wasn't so great. So do they have the ability to push on through to that top level? Possibly. They're going to be studying the defensive structures. They're putting a lot of work in to really prepare as much as they possibly can. So it sounds like this tournament is a big focus for them. I think they're going to win this group, even though the Sharks have that really interesting style of play that weather dependent could be very impressive. Tequila Boom Boom, I just think are too young, even though they are representing Italy next year. Iceni have that legacy, and from what I've heard through the grapevine, they've well positioned to try and reclaim it.
Have I don't know if you have this on your list. I'm going to quickly try and pull it up myself. But have Iceni and Tequila Boom Boom met yet this year?
I don't believe so.
No. Okay.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it was just Shout and Groot. They lost to an Elite Invite. This is Iceni. They beat Yaka, Catch-Up, and 3SB. Yeah, though. Yeah,
No,
Catch-Up and 3SB was Elite Invite. Yaka was in Leicester. I don't think they played TPB.
Have not met this year. Okay. All right. So let's move on to the next slide. We'll take a quick look at the bracket to see how things shake out. I think you've called mostly chalk. Are you calling the Moon Cup Shout an upset here? Do you think?
I'll call a Moon Cup Shout. Go on.
Yeah. So as I was saying, do you see any finishing differently than how they're lined up in the pools right now?
Yeah, I'll go Moon Cup Shout. I'll go Moon Cup Shout swap, and yeah, I'll leave it at that.
So that would have Shout in 2A, which if you see lines up with 1B Hrut in the quarter. So actually I think Hrut have drawn, assuming Hrut beat East Block, which I think you are calling Hrut to beat East Block, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that means Hrut are probably facing either Shout or Moon Cup in the quarter. So you can say, that's what I'm saying. Would you rather have that team in your pool, or would you rather have that quarter matchup? Whereas like for Shout, well, I guess, if Shout get 2A now, they have to face Hrut in the quarter, so it doesn't really help them either way. But yeah, it's gonna be that's gonna be a tough quarter there, because Shout have had Hrut's number all year,
all season.
Yeah, all season, and even last year, except for in bracket play last year, which is when Hrut really put the foot down on them. But before that, Shout did beat them at Spring Tour last year. This year they did the same, and did the same at Elite Invite. So that's a pretty scary place for Hrut. Anything else you see in the way the brackets shake out here?
Grut, we're missing a fair few players at Elite Invite, but yes, 3-0 over a season is mental. Not particularly, because I can't really understand that graphic there.
Yeah, so okay, we'll probably have Yaka. If things go to seed, we'll probably have Yaka versus Iceni in a quarter. We'll have you calling Moon Cup to win, so it'll be Moon Cup versus East Block in a quarter. And then Jinx versus Tequila in a quarter. Do you see any of those, the bottom seeds, taking an upset there? I mean, the Shout Hrut one is going to be the interesting one, but what about the rest?
Not particularly, no.
So you think the basically the top four are going through, with the exception of maybe this Hrut versus Shout or Hrut versus Moon Cup quarter?
This is the demarcation point. Where would you put it, right?
Yeah.
And like I'd put it at 5.
Yeah.
I want to put it at 6. I think I put it at 5.
The only thing is, like, I think 6 could work if they get the right matchup. East Block Moon Cup, I don't hate that. I don't hate that as the draw for East Block to get themselves a quarter. I don't think that's the worst of the 5 that they could get. But yeah, can that, like, the thing is that fast moving defense, can that fast moving offense they play might mitigate a defensive player like Leduc, who's waiting to like bait herself and get that crazy layup block. Can she respond in the same way she would? I like that, but I'm not going to say that East Block get the upset, but I think it could be a decent game. I think it could be a decent game. All right. What would you call here, since we have you on, as a nice early prediction? Who's winning this tournament?
I and I'm sure there's a couple of different reasons. Like, is it because I love their name and I love the faction that was fighting to keep that name one out? Is it because I just have a really big thing for beer? Is it because Emma Sexton's playing for them and that makes them the most pelt team here? Maybe. I'm picking Moon Cup.
Moon Cup all the way, huh?
World Games, bit of an upset, bit of spice. Helen Thompson's also gone over to play for them. Like, they've got quality throughout their ranks. I think, yeah, if the day's right for them, why not?
Okay. I will mention this here, since we're looking at the bracket, something I've forgotten to mention. We will put out a notice about this. There is a new change coming this year to how teams qualify for Elite Invite next year. I should have mentioned this at the top of the show. I'll mention it every time we get to the bracket. We have switched it that instead of the top 8 teams qualifying, it's the top 7 and the 9th team that qualify. Because then if you get yourself into that quarterfinal, if you get yourself into that top 8, you still got to fight to not get last place out of the quarterfinal teams. And if you're down in the Ninals bracket, you still have one chance to qualify for Elite Invite. We thought that would add some spice, some intrigue, some interest. So just so teams know, don't think you're safe just because you won your pre-quarter. You got to still at least win one more game if you want to get yourself to Elite Invite next year. Mm-hmm. Any thoughts on that, Lorcan?
I think it's really good. You're trying to anything kind of like the bid system to make sure people keep fighting as they get into the lower ends of the tournament is fantastic.
All right. Well, thanks, Lorcan. I'll say goodbye for now, and we'll move ourselves on into the mixed division.
All right. Well, thanks for having me. Bye-bye.
Yep. Bye, Lorcan. And for mixed, we're going to bring in Hannah Pendlebury, lovely commentator, will also be gracing us with her voice at the EUCF. Hannah, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm okay. Thank you, Ravi. Hopefully you can hear me through my microphone. I was a little bit late to sound check, but
sounded good. Sounded good. Thanks for joining us up. I know that you told me last minute today that you could make it. You originally couldn't make it to the show, but we had some people drop out and you pulled yourself in.
I did shuffle my plans to be here. That's how exciting it is.
And yeah, how have you felt about this season? How have you felt about things going? How are you feeling about the EUCF coming up in a couple of weeks?
I'm excited. I mean, it's really interesting to see kind of over the history of the mixed division, you know, the kind of coming and going of different teams, the rising and falling. Kind of, there's a couple of consistent folks within the pack heading to Wrocław this year. Plenty of returners as well from 23 who know the tournament site very well. It's a lovely venue to be hosting. I think it's been interesting to see the maturity of the ranking system. Obviously, some people have very strong opinions on how that's all going, as we've seen on this very show, Ravi. And I think that's kind of, you know, it's brilliant to see innovation and kind of the change up to it. I think, you know, sport isn't fair. There's always winners and losers. And I think, you know, looking at all 3 divisions, I think we have a healthy collection of the top 16 teams, you know, however it's been decided, it's given plenty of spice. I think the mixed division felt a little bit more wrapped up, a little bit more clear as to who was going to be making it through. Certainly some of this kind of speculation about results in the summer tours were absolutely wild for open and women's, especially with those transfer deadlines being used. But yeah, it's kind of been a really interesting one to watch and see how things are going. I'm not expecting huge surprises, if I'm honest, to our expectations. But I mean, it's always nice to see who can pull it out the bag when we actually head to kind of, you know, the more traditional format of 16 teams going to battle.
Yeah, well, so I will notice up front, so it's not a super shocker to everybody when their name comes up, is that in the initial rankings, we had, I believe it was Forehands knocked out because of a late single game played by Zoo Mixed. Actually, after all that drama, it turned out Seskidistis decided they couldn't come to EUCF this year, and so Forehands got knocked back in anyway. So everybody got their way, and it wasn't too dramatic. We are looking to tweak things about this whole thing. We'll announce rules to next season in another show, but both teams will be there. Seskidistis, after their years of success in the mixed division, will not be gracing Wrocław, even though they did manage to qualify. So with that, let's start getting into the pools, and we'll start by looking at the top 4 seeds, which shouldn't be a surprise. People who saw the reveal show last year or have looked at the rankings, those are locked in. Mosquitoes, 9-2 record, getting the 1 seed, getting the top of Pool A. We got TC Taucher from München in Pool B. Pool C, we have Deep Space. And Pool D, rounding it out, is the KUS Padova Rangers. So those are our top 4 seeds. Hannah, this probably wasn't a surprise to anybody. But looking at this, anything you wanted to say about these 4 teams before we go on?
I mean, obviously, the big news story is, can Deep Space pull off the three-peat? We had quite an intense mixed final last time around. Massive shout out to CUS Padova Rangers. Of course, last time they qualified in the 15th position, so they ratcheted all the way up to the top. Obviously, they did finish kind of in Ostenda in 10th. But yeah, nice to see the Italians. I think they've got a lot of surnames that I recognize from some of these youth teams that are coming through. So I think they're going to be a spicy one for whoever ends up in Pool D. And obviously, Mosquitoes and TC Taucher. Mosquitoes playing the admin stats game. I do believe they've had someone keeping the numbers board going, and a couple of folks coming across to bolster their numbers. So yeah, it's a strong top 4. Let's get into this.
All right, let's start with the seeding group 4. In Pool D, we're going to have Heck, the 13th seed ranked team. Pool C, we have the aforementioned Zoomix, ranked number 14. In Pool B, Four Hands, after all the drama, after being ranked 17, still managed to sneak their way in. And then in Pool A, Leftovers from Brno, who, and for my money, are a bit underseeded in this fourth seeding group. But let's see how the pools look so far. Any matchups getting there? I mean, last time we talked with Lorcan that the real interesting matchups kind of come a bit later. But do you see anything here in these first reveals?
I mean, I would echo what you said, Ravi. Leftovers perhaps a little bit low. I don't know if they've got the talent to take on Mosquitoes. Obviously, they've left the gold. I'm thinking yellow and trying to say gold. The gold and blue jerseys behind. They've gone for the kind of pinstripe copycat almost of Savage's gear. But imitation is the highest form of flattery. But but I think I'm not sure I see them knocking off Mosquitoes. Obviously coming in with that number 1 seed, they've played the ranking really well. But I think probably the rest of them. I mean, speaking to Zoomix at Windmill, they kind of had said they'd had a really up and down experience of their ranking season. They'd had some, I think it was, they were able to play a really solid half of a game, but not necessarily all the way through. They played the bracket like champs when they got to Windmill in terms of, the way they tried to manage their rosters and did really well at that tournament. But I still probably don't see them knocking off the likes of Deep Space, but maybe stealing a spot up to get themselves a quarterfinal.
Well, let's see who they have a chance to do that for. We'll go into seeding group 3. Seeding group 3, we're starting with Pool A, Reading, dropping down from seeding group 2 to seeding group 3 this year. They'll be seeing themselves in Pool A again, just like last year. Glasgow in Pool B. Tartu Turbulence, another team dropping a seeding grouping, I'm pretty sure. They'll be in Pool C. And Disco Bolo from Bologna in Pool D. So I think we're going to have an Italian matchup there in Pool D. What do you see here now, Hannah?
Well, we've got one of our new faces, as you say, being tested against Padova Rangers. So say, a couple of youth athletes on that roster, are they going to be a little bit vibesy this season when it comes to the big show? Who's to say? I mean, Tartu Turbulence, we've seen them again and again, sort of, the top side of things. Last time around, most notably, obviously getting themselves right up to the bracket. It's, I think, a key thing for them, always maintaining the health of the top end of their roster, which would be no surprise to anybody. I think with Tartu, the conditions last time around really favored their play style. It just, in terms of that kind of, grindy back and forth points, it kind of favors those shorter rosters because both teams are just as tired. But yeah, Glasgow, pretty solid. Reading, as you say, another one that's kind of maybe slipped down a little bit this season, but they've still got a lot of quality amongst their ranks. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this mixed division, Ravi. It's going to be really quite interesting to see how contested these games are.
Yeah, I don't know if this is true. I know a lot of historian facts about European Ultimate. This might be the first time we have a Bologna-based mixed team at EUCF, even though Bologna has, of course, done amazing in the open and women's divisions and bringing multiple teams numerous times, I think, in both divisions. Disco Bolo being among them that have come, I believe, in both women's and open before. But I don't know that we've ever seen a Bologna-based mixed team before. And yeah, I think, I don't know how strong they're going to be. Bologna has a lot of really good ultimate talent, and like I said in the women's division preview, when you have teams from the same country, that's always a chance for a familiarity to breed an upset. So I think that's always going to be an interesting one with Padova versus Bologna. I think Tartu versus Deep Space, like you said, Deep Space a deeper team. Tartu good top end, but in a single game, I would never count out Tartu as a shot there. So it's a tough draw for Deep Space. And I think this Reading Mosquitoes one we'll really get to see. This is kind of like the old generation mix versus the new generation mixed. Which one is the one there that's going to really take take the reins here. But I think
I suppose
really
there's part of the question of, are you going to really focus on knocking off the top seed in your pool if you are maybe more focused on making sure you get yourself to second? Are you really going to run your lines, especially with Tartu and say their talent? Obviously, they do take on the field. They kind of take on the challenge of being just athletically very fit human beings, which got to hand it to them. But I wonder, in terms of the clipboard management, how much you really push for that first seed kind of scalp, looking at who you face in the second seed. So I think this final set of opponents is going to be really telling, isn't it?
I mean, I don't know who's coaching Tartu, but having played and captained a team with Helen Terra before, I'd say good luck getting her off the field in a game against Deep Space. She's going to play probably every point. It doesn't matter whether it's the first game of the tournament or the last. She relishes in those types of games. So
that's true. That's true. But that is one very, very important piece of Tartu.
Yeah.
But of course, it's not just one human doing all the work. I mean, if she was to grind herself out, like I think maybe she would do it for her teammates if they, I don't know, bribed her really effectively.
We'll see. I mean, they have a lot of other talent with Marin Raba and Jakob Tom. I'm just saying, in terms of the clipboard management, it would be a tough task to get her off the field, is all I'm saying. So, all right, let's go to seeding group 2.
We'll have to put a secret spy on the sideline and take lineup notes. Who's putting out every day?
Well, maybe we'll get a stream on that game. Let's go to seeding group 2 and see what's coming up next. In Pool D, we have Savage, ranked number 7 team. Pool C, Disconnection Freiburg, the 5. Pool B, we've got Puck, the 8. And that leaves Lemmings in Pool A. So we're going to get that Reading Lemmings matchup. So I think for here, before we dive into all the pools, let's just bring up the graphic with the bracket on it so that we can contextualize it as we're moving forward in this preview. We'll go through pool by pool, but let's start in Pool A. Just looking at this set of teams. What do you see going on here, Hannah?
It was lovely to see Lemmings in that second spot. I mean, it's going to be a very fun one to watch, I think, especially kind of that derby between Lemmings and Reading. As you say, kind of like talking about this, who do you try and knock off? I think Reading will have their sights firmly set on Lemmings. I would say Lemmings have not necessarily achieved greatness at EUCF of their potential. I mean, looking at their previous listings, if I can find them on my little list. Yeah, 13th last time, 9th, obviously, getting themselves into Ninals and what would now be, of course, that spot into Elite Invite next season, getting yourself those high quality games to start things off. Yeah, I think that's going to be probably the one you're going to look at if you're Reading and say, how can we, and you say exactly the same for the Italians over in Pool D. That is your fellow country folk. If I grab my tab from mixed, because obviously we just had UKU Nationals. Congrats to all the teams for qualifying for various world spots, etc. So yeah, Lemmings in the 3rd spot, Deep Space in 1st, and Reading in 2nd. So it's one of those things where kind of, I think there is going to be that familiarity. But let's move on to the next pool.
Well, I just want to mention real quick, I don't think you should count out leftovers. I think leftovers can steal wins against these UK teams. I think this pool is going to be crazy. I think that Mosquitoes is a notch above the rest, but those 3 below, that's a tough draw. And Mosquitoes is going to come out bloodied. Like, I think they're going to win their games, but none of them easily. And I'm curious how that's going to play itself further into the bracket, because this is a pretty tough pool top to bottom. I think if I look across the rest of them, this might be the toughest one. So, okay, we'll go into Pool B, where we've got TC Taucher, Puck, Glasgow, and Four Hands.
Although I would say, if you do get really intense games in the pool stages, but manage to get that bye round straight into your, matchup for quarters, like that is still going to do the exact thing you want of having proper tests, proper lessons learned, but still get that extra rest compared to the rest of your opponents.
Well tested and well rested if you can manage to win the pool. So that's getting the best of both worlds. All right, let's move to Pool B. What do you see here?
Well, I mean, I really do think Titicaca are going to have a pretty good time of things. I mean, Puck's record 7-5, kind of some mix-ups in there. Not to put any besmirch on the Parisians. Obviously, they've got a really good reputation and not a lot of good history under there. Certainly, they were very unfortunate when they had their Masters iteration back out in Limerick, but they're a very talented team. I think there's a lot of spread, though, from some of the top athletes coming out of the French nation. We're starting to see more, certainly on the female matching side, a lot more of those athletes appearing in the women's division. So, yeah, what are your thoughts, Ravi?
Yeah, I think that this looks like it's pretty much going to go to seed for me. I mean, I think Forehands Glasgow, I don't know these teams well enough to know how that game's going to go, but I think TFC is a title contender. Puck is a quarters level team around where they are. And Glasgow and Forehands are a bit notch below what I know from the rest of the talents in this. So I don't really see much changing aside from maybe Glasgow Forehands swapping.
Yeah, I think one of the kind of stories that came out of the Northern Regional qualifiers for the UKU scene was Glasgow being sort of, taken to some tough games and kind of being beaten by teams that you wouldn't expect them to. So perhaps.
Okay, so Pool C, we got Deep Space, Disconnection, Tartu, and Zoo Mixed. Another one here. I think this is a bit more challenging. The top 3 seeds, I would say Zoo Mixed is going to have a little bit of a tough time, if I would guess. But yeah, you said before, Tartu maybe have to worry about whether they're going to try and come second or come first in this pool. How do you see things shaking out in Pool C?
Well, it is. I think my mind goes back to what you're saying about the Helen Terror effect and taking the chance to knock down Deep Space early in the tournament. I think what would be interesting to imagine is starting off that game, if you're coaching on the clipboard side, if you're running the team management and the lines, if that game starts to go your way, if you're Tartus, and how kind of you then approach that second half. If you're playing a really close half in the first section, or you perhaps have a little bit of a lead going, do you try and really push through the rest of it, as you say, to steal that top spot? But again, it's about saying, and this is what we don't have in front of us, is the timing of when they're meeting these seeds, actually what the schedule looks like in its full realities. Obviously, if you've got that first game to put away against the bottom seed, kind of it depends on how it all faces up on the kind of slate for the schedule. But yeah, Disconnection, again, one of the familiar faces we're used to seeing. Obviously, slight fall from grace, ended up in the top of the bracket last time around in Ostenda, but ending up in the 8th position. So perhaps having a little bit more of a challenging time. Again, I think when we're talking ahead of kind of, all of this EUCF planning, Ravi, it was, my mind had literally blanked out that we were in Ostenda because of how brutal the weather conditions were. I remember being there in my dry robe, being the happiest human, surrounded by people that were wet. So yeah, I think it will be really interesting. I think, again, in a similar fashion to Mosquitoes being tested and then ending up rested, obviously Space have a couple of folks that are not currently in full form in terms of injury. We've had, I think, a broken collarbone out of Ryan Katmer, for example, who should hopefully be cleared to play in Wrocław. Also, following athletes on Instagram, right? Wild. We spend so much time as broadcasters worrying about, restreaming an injury, how many times, if it should be replayed or not, should we show it to the people, the public? How do we talk about it? But the athletes themselves sustain an injury in training and just literally just put it out there on their social media story, like, watch me and watch none of my teammates realize I've just injured myself. But yeah, hopefully everyone can be fully recovered. But but everyone else, I think Tartu Turbulence, obviously we had Jakob Tam with that bandaged up wrist, was it last time around, and he still played through it, hard as nails. So yeah, hopefully if everybody can stay healthy and in fine fettle, we should get some really good matchups there. But yeah, all the love in the world to ZooMix, but I don't think they're going to make any kind of damage against these three.
Yeah. And if you had to predict how the top three are going to finish, just 1, 2, 3, where do you think it's going to go?
I think Space will hold on to that top spot. I mean, they're looking at the kind of, the concept of a three-peat. They have actually a really brilliant leadership, I would say. A lot of folks that maybe you don't always see them doing all the big things on pitch, but they do quite well, I think, in terms of just they are very good emotional managers. So in the pool stages, I'd expect them to kind of keep their nerve. I think they'll get a good shakedown from both Disconnection and Turbulence. And I'm going to say, I think Tartu Turbulence will steal that second spot.
All right. Just do want to mention quickly Disconnection. We're going to get to see Joanna Erdmann, World Games player, back out there. So it's nice if you became a fan of her, watching her at World Games, get another chance to see her out with Freiburg. But let's move on to Pool D and look at the Rangers, Savage, Disco Bolo, and Heck.
So, yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to steal your impression that we might get a close one. I think this is the top seed to me, and it would make sense being, the fourth ranked coming in from the EUCS series. I think Rangers do look the most knock-offable of their top perch and see yourself with that rest going through. It's interesting to see that Savage obviously going wild style, getting their wild card from the Summer Tour in Warsaw, but they have the minimum number of games required. They're 6-4 for their schedule. So I think probably Disco Bolo have a good shot at kind of, again, sneaking into that second seed, if not the top. Heck, though, do have a lot of good swagger. I'd say they've got some good chat, some good energy amongst their roster, and they have had some pretty good moments. Obviously, they got the Sterling wild card, a lot of UK teams at that event, but they managed to see themselves at the top of it. So I'd say, this is probably the most kind of anyone's game pool, really. It depends on how they show up at the time. And also, again, for all these teams, what the weather conditions are like.
Yeah, I'm curious. I think Savage and Rangers might be but again, I don't know Disco Bolo that well, and Heck, winning that Sterling wildcard was quite a shocker. They beat Reading on the road to do that. But Savage now has a full season under their belts, playing really well. They lost to ZooMixed in the semifinals of Windmill, I remember, in a really, really good game. Played Elite Invite, were top 8 last year, so have a bit more experience at this top level than some of these other teams, even though they were quite new last year. Rangers have Pavan, they've got Girotto, they've got some really, really good players on that squad. So I think they will be a good challenge. But yeah, I kind of see Savage maybe with a chance to upset here. And then, even though the Rangers and Bologna is a derby, they're just too far away from the rankings in my mind to think that there's really going to be an upset there. So, I don't think Heck, even though they beat Reading, maybe they could beat Disco Bolo, but maybe I see the 1-2 swapping and the 3-4 swapping, something like that. Just looking quickly.
Just to be fair with Savage, I think there is definitely a lot of big connections and talent. We definitely saw them do really great things at Windmill, but I wonder if good scouting is really going to hurt their chances as they get towards kind of the pointy end of things. And that people now, as you say, Savage are way more established. They're way more known. They really do play a pretty savage and unconventional style, a bit of nominative determinism in there. But yeah, I think there is definitely some ways to shut them down.
Yeah. And if you look closer into how the bracket's going to shake out, I think we haven't called too many upsets from the top seeds down. I kind of see it as, and I look at who's really championship contenders here, I kind of see the top 3, and I think all 3 could do it. And I always have to throw Tartu in the mix because I think that if they get hot in a bracket play game, if they can find themselves somewhere in the bracket where, let's say they get to 2C, they'll face 1D. I think they could take any team in Pool D in quarterfinals that would find themselves in semifinals, which actually isn't a bad spot to be. So getting 2C might get them a decent quarterfinal. And then, if it's a single game against one of these top 3, I think they have the best shot in my mind to get an upset. It still would be an upset. I still think the top 3 in a league of their own. But I always back Tartu with the likes of Raba, the likes of Tara, Tom. We know all their top players. And if I'm gonna look at how I see it going, the way if everything goes to seed here, then my kind of in the seed in the top 3, then the semifinals would be Mosquitoes versus whoever comes out of Pool D or 2C. And I think for my money, Tartu could be that team. So I have Mosquitoes, Tartu in the semi, and TFC Deep Space in the semi. And I think with Deep Space sustained injuries and TFC with a chip on their shoulder from last year, losing to them on Universe, I back the München team to take out Deep Space in semis, which would probably leave me with a Mosquitoes TFC final, which I think the teams have played each other very close all season. But I think the experience from TFC would win out. I think they really want to go for this thing for Worlds next year. They're really dialed in. So that's how I see the bracket shaking out. Do you see anything different, Hannah?
No, I actually really like that as a call. In terms of that being your top four, I agree. I think the top three are kind of just relatively in a league of their own in terms of just the depth of talent that we see. And again, kind of the big game experience that they've had together. I know that TC Talca had a kind of internal challenge earlier on this year and that they resolved that together and they came together, which I think also, like you say, being locked in, dialed in for thinking about next season, thinking about, the World Club Championships that are coming up, but also overcoming that as a group, as a team, I think, it gives you that kind of mentality and that edge. But I mean, there is something really nice about a three-peat. There's obviously Deep Space this year. The rich got richer. They took some of the best players out of Lemmings, which is amazing to see them, in that second sort of pot of seeds, despite having lost some of their younger talent who I know were absolutely chuffed together. That was always like cute. Again, just us following people on social media, always like cute pictures of teammates with each other, kind of, coming across from that club. So yeah, I think I'm going to say maybe, if we do see the 2C Deep Space semi-final, that may well be the game of the mixed division. Just because, again, repeat of last year's final, really will be kind of a really spicy one to watch. But heck, I think we're going to have a great championship bracket, Ravi, however this all shakes out. And that is exactly what we want.
More bulletin board material for Mosquitoes saying that they're not the team of the tournament, even though they got the 1 seed overall in the whole season. It's not the first time they've been underrated, so we'll see how they respond to that on social media later.
But that's also one of the crazy things about the way the kind of rankings go, right? It's this concept that you have, a team that only have one loss to their record coming in at the second spot versus a team that's lost twice and only
to that team. By the way.
But that's the wonderful thing about the black box. It means that people kind of come in and maybe there is a little bit of an edge and a confidence for Mosquitoes. Like you say, they really have been putting in the work on every side of it, whether that's kind of the athletic conditioning, as you say, the kind of the stats game that they've been keeping, the kind of self-improvement stuff. It's been really exciting to see. And it's nice to have someone come onto the scene, because you look again like into kind of the early 2020s and the kind of number of teams that we've lost. Obviously we've not got anymore. Mancho, Nolacht, Smog, kind of all those teams that were doing really good things, or
Seski.
Early, Seski as well, who obviously choosing not to come this time. I might have to see if my spy network can find out more information as to why that is. I'm intrigued.
All right. Well, thanks, Hannah. We got to move on. We're going on a little long here, which we knew we would. But thanks for coming on. I will see you in Wrocław in a couple of weeks. But now it's time to move on to the final division of the tournament. We're going to look at the Open division. Bye, Hannah. For that, we're going to bring on John Doherty, John Doc. Nope, that's still Hannah. There he is.
Hi.
How you doing, John?
Not too bad. Hoping the child doesn't break in the door here while he's being put to bed.
All right, John. How you feeling about how the season's gone on? How you feeling about how the whole ranking system's developed itself? I know you're always there in the chats. What's your thoughts 2 years in now?
Yeah, it's been fun to follow. Took a year off playing this year. Nice to see other people complaining about it and just figure it out. It's not that hard. Figure it out. Gain an advantage instead of complaining. It's people who put in the work and get a little bit of an edge. So it's rewards people who want to put in the time, I think, rather than just the lazy teams who show up and win.
Now, as a like very seasoned coach and understander of the system, would you say a good strategy would be to bring a good team to Summer Tour? I think that's maybe a strat.
Yeah, or just head over as far east as you can for your Summer Tour. That seems to
one of
work
those
out
two
as well.
strats. One of those two.
It's funny that no one figured that out from last year, but
All right. Well, let's get into the open division here. We'll start with the top 4 seeds, as we all know from the final ranking. Starting here with Chalk from Pool A, seed 1. Pool B, we have Mooncatchers from Brussels. Pool C, Wall City from Berlin. And Pool D, Grut from Amsterdam. So quick thoughts on this top 4. Anything you want to say before we get the pool shaken out? Maybe some teams these pool leaders would want to avoid. Any spice you want to throw in here, John?
I would say maybe if I'm Bologna or Clapham, I would like to get the Mooncatchers group, because you get a free chance to try and beat them, and if you fail, well, you get another chance, and if you do manage to beat them, you get Wall City as your semi, who I think is probably would be a team they would both be happy playing with, as opposed to the other ones. So that may be the only interesting take from the top 4. It's all pretty even otherwise, I think.
All right, so you want to get Pool B if you're Lafoda or Bologna or Clapham. We'll see if that shakes out.
That'll be my view on it. Yeah.
All right.
Free chance
and
to cause an
what about
upset
if you're one of these, like which one of these teams? If you're one of these top teams, do you want Clapham or Bologna in your pool, or do you want them, like this is the classic question, or do you want to kind of avoid them in quarters? Like what's your strat here?
I mean, for me, I'd like to avoid Mooncatchers if I'm most teams, basically. So kind of whatever way you basically don't end up in that part of the bracket, they're the one team, if they play their best, I think they just beat everyone else. Whereas I would say there's 5 top teams, and Mooncatchers are like a little bit ahead of the other 4. And one of those top 5 teams is also here. So I think you'd want to play those more.
And you say that even though Chalk, of course, overall this season is undefeated and doing their best. You don't rate them higher.
They're French, though. They're French. You never know. They're the equivalent of Irish. It's like they're more likely to beat Mooncatchers and then lose a pre-quarter or something like that than be consistent for a whole tournament. But you never know. Maybe they're after figuring it out. 2 years ago they weren't very good, and now they're up in the top seed. So maybe they figured it out, and maybe they're elite. I think this tournament is the one where they showed. If they get third again, I'll say at least top 3. I would say they're now officially an elite team. But
getting third last year wasn't enough for you. That wasn't.
You never know. Anyone can have one good tournament. So they weren't so convincing in their path before that. They won when it mattered, though. I guess that's what mattered more.
All right, let's go to seeding group 4 and see what we see there. We've got Bristol, everyone's favorite, your 31st ranked team up here.
Lads, well deserved.
Taking it over Ranelagh.
They beat a top 16 team to get there, so whatever about the rest of it, they won a game that mattered.
We got Jet Set, the real pretenders that didn't beat anybody.
This is the team now that people should be looking and wondering. But with the story with them losing some players to Gentle, I think everyone finds that funny. So I get a laugh out of that.
In Pool B, we got Örebro. They did manage to get themselves in the top 16 and win a wild card, so they managed to do it both ways, which just barely beating catch-up in that wild card game.
Yeah.
And then we're finishing off with Free Speed. This was a big surprise to me. Beating Quixotes, beating some teams along the way, beating Costa Rica in the final and getting themselves a wild card in here, with starting off not very good in the season, but ending up with the top 17 rank. So there we are with the 4 seeds. So we got Chalk, Free Speed, Mooncatchers, Örebro, Wall City, Jet Set, and Grut Bristol. I think not so much interesting things here yet, but what do you see?
Not too much to say there, no.
Yeah, everything's going to seed so far.
Yeah, I'll save all my long speeches for when it really counts.
Okay, then let's go to seeding group 3 and see what we got out here. Here you go, 3SB in Pool A.
The reason I took a year off
is no good in Pool B, being the last ranked team in once again. Chevy Action Flash in rank number 10 in Pool C. And Bad Skid, rank number 9 in Pool D. All right, things starting to shape up. Anything you want to say yet, or still nothing too interesting at the moment?
Okay, you can flip Isno and Örebro for. I think Isno had the softest schedule to get here. I think if you look at, I think the only reason
softer than Örebro's.
Örebro, like they at least won a wild card. So they got in with a tough one. I think Isno good. I think if you look at the Is No Good schedule, the results, and you look at the gentle results, it seems I can understand why if I was gentle I'd be annoyed. I wouldn't care about the wild cards. I would more feel like maybe the system should reflect that my results on paper look better than Is No Goods. But again, I guess it doesn't matter too much. But I think, yeah, probably just with that. I'd imagine 3SB probably a little bit okay with that one. I think the other ones would cause them more problems.
The other 4 seeds or the other 1 seeds?
I actually, it's other than the Chevron one, it's possible that all those seedings would switch from the bottom 2, in my opinion. I don't think the gap between these wildcard teams and 3, I think Chevron are probably better than Jet Set, but if the other bottom teams have a good game, like I could see them beating those teams. Bad Skid probably the next hardest one to beat, but Is No Good or 3SB definitely capable of having a bad game against either of those teams. So wouldn't surprise me to see some swaps there, but I don't think any of them are. Maybe Chevron against Walled City, but other than that, the top seeds are saying the same, I think.
All right, let's go to seeding group 2. So La Fota ending up in Pool D. That's one of the teams we definitely have our eyes at. Heidi's not qualifying last year, getting themselves up to the 5th rank this year in Pool C. All right, Clapham put themselves in Pool B, rank number 7. And Costa Rica Grande is the 8th ranked team in Pool A. So here we go, full slate of teams. And just like last time, why don't we just pull up the bracket all together so we can look at this thing all in one go. And we'll just go pool by pool and give me your thoughts. Let's start in Pool A. You already mentioned that you think 3SB might drop it to free speed. What do you see about Costa Rica Chalk or maybe those bottom teams against Costa Rica? What do you see here?
So Chalk will win this group, and the other one could easily end up being a 3-way tie. It could be chaos. Like I said, I think 3SB could lose to free speed, but I also think they could potentially beat Costa Rica as well. I haven't seen enough of free speed to know how they'd match up stylistically with Costa Rica, but I would say that's the most likely. Those 3 teams are probably the 3 happiest teams right now, unless I look at the other groups and see something. But I would say those 3 teams all think they have a chance of getting a second seed from their group.
All right, Pool B, we got Moon Clapham in pool play. Not often that we get that at the EUCF, but this year, maybe as a result of Clapham playing 3 even lines all their way through the season, underseeding themselves, sandbagging their ranking a little bit. I got Isno and Odebrew. I'm guessing you see the top 2 a slight notch above the bottom 2 here.
Yeah. I think the bottom 2 could easily flip. And I was thinking about it earlier when I was trying to think which teams might do well. And in my opinion, there's like 5 top teams. And I think if you take Mooncatchers out of it, I think you have like Czech, Groot, Bologna, and Clapham. I think without Mooncatchers, Clapham are the most likely team to actually beat all the other teams like 3-0. But I also think they're the team least likely to be able to beat Mooncatchers. So I think this is probably a best case scenario in some ways. If you're Clapham, maybe they might think different. They might prefer to get straight in, but I think I'm not sure if they can definitely avoid Mooncatchers now till the final. But if they can do that, then one of those other teams that's more likely to beat them. I think that might.
If you get second, and unless they get 3rd in the pool, then they do avoid Moon till the final. So 2B and 1B are on opposite sides of the bracket. That always works out that way.
I think they avoid the one team that I'm not sure if they can beat, and I think they're capable of beating everyone else. And someone else is more likely to be Mooncatchers. So I don't know how they think about that. I'm sure maybe they don't think as deeply as I do about these things. But it's hard to imagine a situation where they overcome what we saw in the final last year. Although they are a team like that could probably have hidden something all season because they do train properly, I guess. So maybe they have some hidden things, but they're around long enough. I would imagine if they had some kind of answer for Mooncatchers, we might have seen something closer to it by now. So again, I think I'd be happy if I was Clapham in that group. But I think, only the bottom 2 is the only one that's likely to switch, maybe. I would say it's probable that it will switch, would be if I had to go out on a limb. I think Orbo looked decent at Summer Tour at times. They have a good 7 or 8 players that are probably better than Isno's best 7 or 8, I would say.
All right, so we'll go into full bracketology in a minute, but that might put Clapham against Chalk in the quarter. We'll talk about that in a sec. But here we got Pool C: Wall Cities, Heidi's, Chevy, and Jet Set. What do you see there?
that could. I mean, could it be another three-way tie situation? I haven't seen enough of Heidi's to know. I've only seen their results and knowing that they were there. But like, obviously, if they scored one more point last year, they would have been there instead of is no good. So if we assume that they're ranked ahead of Chevron because they're potentially better, and I think Chevron are capable of beating Wall City, then this could be another three-way tie. And I think Jet Set might decide that the first day of the tournament, they maybe go on the beers, and on the second days, they play for that 9th spot to try and get the elite invite next year.
They love sneaking into spots. It's usually their home tournament. So
I think the top three is very, very interesting. I think Jet Set a fair bit below the rest.
Yeah, I think Chevy and Wall City were in the same pool last year, if I remember correctly, and I think that was a crazy windy game, and Wall City played the wind better than Chevy did. If I remember, that was a matchup I think I watched.
I think they played a couple. I think they might have played at Summer Tour as well, but there was so many calls in the game, I turned it off. I didn't bother watching. I think it was close. It's a combination of the stream cutting out every time there was gameplay, and every time the stream worked, someone was making a call. So it could be a fun one.
Hopefully, we get a better one live in Wrocław. Yeah, and like you said, Heidi's I also haven't seen much of myself this year. I'm curious. Like you said, the results got them to a top 5 rank. That's really impressive. So does that mean they can challenge Wall City? I think they didn't even make semis at German Nationals this year.
I was looking at their results. Their results like this season don't seem overly impressive. But they're not terrible either. And again, it's more the fact that I think Wall City are the most beatable top 4 seeded team. Ripping into them, it's just I just don't think they have a kind of an X factor thing that other teams just can't keep up with. They just play.
You don't think Konrad Schlor is an X factor that other teams can't keep up with? I mean, it's
just like a typical German team. You know what you're going to get. There's probably not going to be anything too fancy, and they're pretty good at what they do. But other teams can also potentially do that and maybe do a little bit more. So, like I said, with Wall City, they won an elite invite, and when they first a couple of years ago, the first elite invite, but I think maybe they've made one semi since then. So they beat all the teams they should beat, and then they have good early seasons. But I think when it kind of matters, they don't seem to get the results at EUCF. So again, there you go. Motivation for you lads. Go out and actually have a good game when it counts.
The one thing I will back them up on was that I think Herkins and Diekman played incredible for the World Games team. And I don't know if I'm assuming they're both rostered for Wall City at EUCF. But I think they're playing better than I've seen them play before. And if they can bring that, whatever training they've done for World Games into EUCF, I would be, I think they're got some players that were pretty good that turned into great players this year because of their World Games trainings. We'll see if that's one thing I'll give them. I also think they're a pretty good team. I always love watching Wall City. I agree that Wall City Chevy game is going to be one to watch. All right, let's get to Pool D. We've got Lafota, we've got Bad Skid and Bristol. What do you see in here?
I would, at first glance, I would think it would maybe go to seed purely based on the fact that I think Groot, they're new this season. They had some decent results at the start of the season at Elite Invite. Or no, they weren't new because they were in Elite Invite. Never mind. Last year was their first year. This year was their first year where it's like maybe you would say they're actually like an elite level team now. I wouldn't say they were elite last year. I know they came top 8, but
they beat XVI on Universe to get into.
Exactly.
They're slightly different level this year.
Yeah. So there's like 7 elite teams maybe last year. This year they do seem like it, and based on the improvement between Elite Invite and Summer Tour, if they keep that going, and if they do in the group stage especially, I don't think they're going to be too stressed about this is a big first time occasion for them. So Bologna definitely capable of beating them. Like it's a fun one. Maybe if a good Bristol team shows up, they could maybe beat Bad Skid. I said that already, but I would say in my head, I would think it would be likely to go to seed, but it's probably it's definitely the most, is it the most likely upset? I would say it's the second most likely upset. I'd say Chevron beating Wall City would be, in my opinion, might be more likely if group play well. So it's a fun one though. At least that's definitely probably the most fun top seed clash matchup. I think all the other ones.
I mean, the Moon Clapham one is going to be fun as well. I think. You think
I don't know. I just
you don't see it as a close.
I just think I think Clapham against any of the other ones is more fun. I just don't see. I can't remember what the score was last year. It's hard to see how they turn it around. And if they have something that they're saving, maybe they don't want to show it in the first game against them if they think they'll play them twice. So, it's not a must-win game for them. So if they're going to cause the upset, shall we call it, there's no point causing your upset in a group stage.
The most important thing we got to figure out is who is Lafota going to lose to on Universe and semis, and then have that team play terrible in the final, because that's what's happened the last 2-3 years in a row. Lafota loses Universe on semi. Whoever they lose to ends up getting beaten in the final. So let's take a look quickly at the bracket out here. So you mentioned that you think Clapham will fall in that game to Mooncatchers. That would likely set up a quarter between Clapham and Chuck, and Clapham would have had to play a pre-quarter to get there against 3C, which could be Heidi's. So also probably not a very bad team. So they'll have to go through Heidi's, and then they'll have to play Chuck. Now you're back in Clapham beat teams. I think if I look at this matchup, I think if Chuck get one more game of rest, they have an easier pool, and they're younger, they're more fit than a lot of Clapham people are. I back Chalk in that one, but I'm curious what you say in that matchup.
I think one advantage Clapham will have over some of maybe the other teams is I'm not sure how much elite teams all get to train together every week as a big group. I feel like Clapham do. And if there's maybe one team going into this tournament that could develop specific game plans for specific teams and practice them at their training before the event, it might be Clapham. And that's why I think Clapham against Czech or Groot or Bologna, I think Clapham can have a different game plan for each potentially and execute it well. Whereas maybe a team that prepares less might adjust their strategy, but wouldn't have it drilled as much. So I would fancy, I would give Clapham a chance against anyone. Again, like I said, anyone I think again other than Mooncatchers, I think I would fancy their chances. But the kind of second to fifth best team games are just they're crazy close. It's could just be a case of someone just has one bad drop and shifts the momentum of the game. They really are that close. Normally in previous years, it's kind of look, this team's obviously better than this one, but I feel now it's a lot closer. And it's hard to also really know how good kind of some of the newer ones are. Like I said, Czech, last year they were good. This year they've been good. It's but it's hard to count the earlier part of the season. So I didn't necessarily think they were amazing at EUCF last year, even though I think you said it either came third or fourth. I can't remember, but
they came
third.
They beat Wall City in the quarters, actually, in a game I thought they played really well. They got kind of smashed by Mooncatchers in the semi, and then they beat Lafota in the 3-4 game, in a game that I saw that both teams were definitely trying for, and they managed to just be the better team than Lafota there. And I back them.
No
I think you're underrating.
I think they lost to Is No Good, or else they
lost to Is No Good at Nationals, but
game to get
French Nationals is you don't get to collect your players from other clubs at Nationals, so they're much stronger in their Euro roster than they are at their Nationals roster.
Yeah, might have been a few Euros exchanging hands as well to get his name around. So I just think they're a bit inconsistent. So I think Clapham, it's a good chance for Clapham to beat a team that people maybe expect to beat them. It wouldn't shock me if Clapham won. It wouldn't shock me if Czech won. It's that close. I just think I would give the edge to Clapham if they've used their season properly, which maybe they did, given they were rotating lines and doing all sorts of things earlier in the season.
Yeah. So we're curious how they'll take UCF. I imagine they will really clamp down and try to win this one. But if they have their eyes set on Wook next year, maybe they're still going to keep playing 3 lines out there here. I don't know what they're going to do. Who knows what Clapham's plans are. All right. So then anything else interesting in the bracket? We'll see 1D versus 2C. That's probably going to have Hrut or Lafota versus... You were saying that maybe Chevy takes the 1C, so maybe Wall City. I think you've already stated that you kind of back Hrut to take that one.
Yeah, I think I would take Groot to beat any of the teams in Group C.
And then 2D, that's going to go against 1C, so we'll have Lafota against Chevy or something like that. So I think you're backing both those teams to make semis.
Yeah, I think everyone. I think the top 2 teams in Pool D are stronger than the top 2 teams in C. So I imagine the 2 teams in D will win their games against Group C.
So that'll probably set us up with Lafota versus the winner of Chuck Clapham, and Hrut versus Mooncatchers. Oh, sorry. Did I got that right? No. 1D is against 1A. Sorry. It's Hrut versus the winner of Chuck Clapham, and then Lafota versus Mooncatchers is, I guess, how the bracket's shaken out the way you're calling things.
Yeah, it's hard to follow it now with all the changes I'm making.
yeah.
you
haven't made that many changes. I think only Pool C
only
is freaking around, and then it's everything else is going to seed. So,
But,
what do you think about Hrut in this matchup? Like, let's say they get against Chalk and Clapham. Do you put them in that ranking? I mean, one thing is an X factor. They did win their summer tour pretty cleanly over Well City. I think it was a close one, but they're going to have Jason Valley and Dan Rittenholler, who, if you watched any of the Pro Champs final, are just completely amazing for the Revolver D-line. I think they're going to do the same thing for the Crit D-line. So I think this D-line from Crit's going to be very scary. What do you think? Do you back their chances to take on one of these games, or do you think they're still a notch below the likes of Chalk and Clapham?
I think the most likely time for Groot to lose a game that really matters will be the semi-final, because I feel like that will be the first one where some of the players are in a new kind of territory, and it'll feel like there's something to lose more than in a quarter. Like I think in a semi, I think whoever they play in the quarter, they'll end up beating. I think if they make it to the final, I would back them to win it. But
really,
I think the semi is. I think they would. I just think they won't really. In some ways, they almost won't care if they make the final. It'll be like, if that makes sense. There's no like. It's not like there's a pressure on Groot if they make the final. It's not like, it's a final. It's crazy. If they're against someone like Mooncatchers in a final, it's like people like would think, oh, Mooncatchers should win, but it's not as clear. I just think if they can get through the semi, they're more likely to come fifth. If they're more likely to come third, but they could also come for first or fifth. I think they will win their last game of the tournament, no matter what it is, and they will lose. They might lose a semi-final. That's my weird take on Groot.
Well, the one thing they'll have going for them is that Mooncatchers have to go through Lafota in semis, and like I said, the last 3 years, whoever has to go through Lafota loses in the final. So that's they have that going for them if they make the final.
Yeah.
So what's your if you have to predict it down? Just give me your top three. What's going to come out of this mess of the Open Division?
Oh, top three without trying to even remember all the possibilities.
Just forget the bracketology.
I feel Mooncatchers, if they play well, they're just better than everyone else. Yeah. And then the next best three, or the next best one, I think if Clapham will avoid Mooncatchers, which they will, I think they might end up getting to the final to get a rematch against them. And I said that Groot would win their last game, so they'll come third.
All right.
So Moon, Clapham, Groot, even though it wouldn't surprise me if Clapham ended up fifth. So I think they're as likely to come second as they are to come fifth.
All right. I'll just recap one more time that we have changed the rules for qualifying for Elite Invite. It is no longer the 1 through 8. It's the 1 through 7 and the 9th that make it. We got a question from Magnus Wilson. Should there be an exception for a team that finishes 8th and beats the team that finished 9th? And if they beat the team that finished 9th earlier in the tournament? I think we did discuss that as a competition committee, and we were going back and forth. But we said, nah, just forget it. You got to win out your games. It'll make that game for 9th place super exciting and the game for 7th place super exciting. 2 games to go. So just once you get to the bracket, you got to start over, and that's where it goes. So we'll see. We could end up that the 8th best team is invalid, that we end up with the 9th instead of 8th best team with this format. But I think that's a cost, and the benefit is we have a lot more of an exciting consolation bracket, and for us, we thought that trade-off was worth it. What's your thoughts, John Doc?
Yeah, I think playing for 9th, it's kind of one of those weird ones. Would you rather lose your last 3 games or win your last 3 games? I think teams coming out of a tournament finishing 8th will nearly always feel worse than the team finishing 9th, except
so
that
EUF even worse.
Except that EUCF, where at least you knew you got the Elite Invite spot. Whereas now you've taken that away. So coming 8th now, you're just going to just hate everything. And it makes the 7-8 game kind of a lot more relevant, especially in the Open Division where the teams usually accept the spot. So the 7-8 game might be more exciting than I was going to say the 3-4 game, but they still get medal. It'll be better than the 5-6 game anyway.
So if we're going to stream one that round, we should stream the 7-8. Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
And I will say, since you mentioned teams dropping out, that if a team drops out, it will go to the 8th, that they are the first on the wait list. So it won't go to the 10. So if you are 8th and some team drops out, you'll still get to go. All right. Any final thoughts on the Open Division here, John?
It's not so bad with the wildcards. I think only one team in Gentle is actually unlucky this season. I think everyone else, if you're not here, you don't deserve to be here. The teams Gentle lost games when it mattered, but they still had a good thing. Ranelagh nearly lost to Smash D, and they lost to Bristol. Quixotes, you lost to Free Speed on the Sunday, final day of the season, when you knew the situation was that mattered. So anyone who's not here and thinks the system's bad, blame your leadership. The system is pretty good. There's only like maybe 8 elite teams. One of them's a bit unlucky not to be here. Everything else, it makes the rest of the season exciting. So figure out the system and do a better job next year.
All right. Sage words from John Duck, our biggest fan, always in the chats. Great to have you to close out this UCF preview show.
Right,
thanks to John. Thanks to Hannah. Thanks to Lorcan. Thanks to all of you. We'll see you in Wrocław in a couple of weeks. For all of our commentators, all of our fans, everyone, all the teams, thanks for playing, and see you soon.